this is a talk about the UK Squirrel Accord, a little bit of background, our activities and our achievements. So why the UK Squirrel Accord? Well, grey squirrels, they're an established non-native species and they're impacting red squirrel populations, native red squirrel populations, tree health and woodland ecosystems. And this is a serious issue at a time when we're losing so much of our bird biodiversity in this country and across the world. And also when we're trying to plant trees, young trees for the future. They were introduced into England and Ireland from North America from 1876 until people realised there was a major problem. And then in 1930, a law was passed to prevent their importation and keeping. Now, because they're an established species, they require a serious amount of conservation time and effort to reduce their negative impacts. And we're very grateful to everybody that's involved in those conservation efforts. So the negative impacts, yeah, as I say, grey squirrels are an introduced species. They're classed as invasive due to their negative impacts. Only around 10 to 15% of introduced species, non-native species, become invasive. Many species, when they're introduced into new areas, just simply cannot survive and die off. And a lot of species are able to become naturalized or to live in their environments without causing real major problems, things like our little owl. However, yes, as I was saying, 10 to 15% of species are moved into when they're moved into a new area, an area where you wouldn't naturally be able to get to. I have never seen a grey squirrel being able to swim the Atlantic. But when they're introduced into new areas, they're able to, they don't have any predators really, they don't have any maybe diseases that manage their populations, and essentially their populations explode and they cause various serious issues. Other species that we work on, not through the Accord, but generally are worked on in the invasive as well, so things like rhododendron, Himalayan balsam, Japanese knotweed, and then there are other species that are potentially coming over here or have come over here but have rapid response teams to deal with things like the Asian hornet. And if you see one of those, please report it as soon as possible so it can be eradicated. They cause local extinctions of red squirrels through competition and disease transmission. And you can see from this video that comes from Northumberland, the size of the grey squirrel and how much more aggressive it is. It was chasing that red squirrel off a feeder. And this happens, through competition for food and habitat. Grey squirrels will just outcompete and push out and cause local extinctions of red squirrels. However, they also carry squirrel pox virus, which they don't contract, but which is almost always fatal to red squirrels. It can kill 80 to 90% of a red squirrel population. And in the presence of squirrel pox virus, red squirrels will die out 25 times faster than through competition alone. Grey squirrels also bark strip young broadleaf trees, creating open wounds, causing damage, stressing the trees and causing fatalities. Now, there is a hierarchical system in terms of invasive species. The most effective way to tackle invasive species is not to let them into your country in the first place. And there is a lot of horizon scanning that goes on to see what species might be coming our way and what species might come into the country and what species through rapid climate change might actually become invasive in the future. The next is to do a rapid eradication. So if you see something coming in, like the Asian hornet, if you see it coming into the country, then the best thing to do is to tackle it as soon as you possibly can and eradicate it. And then the most challenging, should we put it, way of tackling invasive species is those established species. Once they're established in a country and they've taken hold, that is where a lot of the time and resources go into tackling invasives. It's those established species that are causing the most damage, such as the grey squirrel. So to tackle the issue of grey squirrels, to protect red squirrels, to protect broadleaf trees, a partnership was set up called the UK Squirrel Accord. It currently has 41 conservation and forestry organisations, government agencies and companies, and we have links to the vital red squirrel community groups that do so much of the red squirrel conservation and grey squirrel management work across the UK. And as I said, our aims are, we want to protect the UK's red squirrel populations, we want to protect tree health and woodland ecosystems, and underlying all of this is the need to manage the negative impacts of grey squirrels. The Accord was set up in 2015. at the invitation of His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, who's now King Charles. And we work collaboratively on advice, communications, policy, research, management, and fundraising, and basically any way we can, any area we can work on to tackle this problem. This is just a montage of the various different signatories that are involved, and as you can see, it covers a wide range of conservation and forestry interests, but also a number of different signatories that come from across the UK, the devolved UK countries. It really is a collaborative partnership. So the way it is set up is that we have an executive committee, which is made up of some of the UK Squirrel Accord signatories, and that gives an oversight to the work of the Accord. And then there are 4 subcommittees that sit under the executive committees that are made up of the UK Squirrel Accord signatories and other stakeholders. And this is communications and fundraising. The Fertility Control Board, which specifically looks at grey squirrel fertility control research, knowledge exchange and woodland management, and then red squirrel conservation. And it's really vital that all of those subcommittees are kind of feeding into the executive committee, and the flow is each way, really. But this allows us to really focus on key pieces of work that we need to take the Accord forward and deliver our aims. So in terms of ways of working, the Accord has an autonomy to pursue any and all activities that benefit the partnership. So if we see an opportunity to work in a specific area, or there's a specific piece of policy that comes along, or we want to create some communications, or whatever that may be, then we have the autonomy to pursue that, and as long as it delivers the Accord's aims. As I've been talking about, it's a wonderful, breadth of partner, sector and stakeholder engagement. It really covers a range of different stakeholders, and it really does cover the UK. We have a dedicated role, which I'm currently in, which is funded by some of the UK Squirrel Accord signatories, to which we're very grateful. And it does provide a lead for project and partnership management and delivery, because without this role, the aims and the activities of the partnership probably wouldn't be delivered in quite the same way. Other ways we have through the signatories, but also through a range of different stakeholders, we have access to experts and expert advice, and it's really important that we ensure that the work of the Accord is evidence-based. It's based in science, and the language that we're using is based in science, and the communications that we're putting out are evidence-led, so that we really are putting out the right messages, and backing it up with the science, and looking on the horizon for any new science, any new research, any new evidence that's out there, and we're always keen to hear from people. It offers a coordinated and active engagement in activities through the various committees, which, as I say, are really very important. We also can create smaller working groups to deliver actions that deliver partnership aims. And when I have a look through some of the work that's going on through the subcommittees and a bit later, we can see where some of those working groups might have come out of the subcommittees, maybe involving other people as well that aren't necessarily in the subcommittees. But those working groups really do focus on delivering things like action plans, or the creation of things like action plans. And it ensures an effective flow of information across the signatories and stakeholders. So we're always trying to share information from one area or from one certain stakeholders or signatories to others, and also getting that information in a coordinated space, and being able to get it out into the wider public, which is really vital. And yeah, as I said, focusing on improving public understanding and awareness. We want people to come on the journey with the Accord. We want people to understand why we're here, what we're doing it for, and that they feel that they're either engaged or involved in that journey and that work, and supportive of it. And all of those ways of working increase the reputation and achievements of the Accord, and therefore that has a knock-on impact in being able to increase its national influence and the ability to deliver for those key aims. So just looking at the communications work that we're doing through the subcommittees, we're really keen on awareness raising, and there's been some fantastic press over the summer, first in the BBC News, which was also covered by a huge range of other national and local outlets. And also through BBC Countryfile and the August, I think it was the 21st of August edition of BBC Countryfile covered grey squirrel bark stripping and a look at the fertility control. And I think the media is very interested, and the public are very interested, as are we, in this idea of grey squirrel fertility control as an interesting and alternative or complementary way to manage grey squirrels, and we'll look at that in a bit later as well. We're looking at online and in-person events, so these webinars are just part of the way we try and communicate with the stakeholders, but also try and raise greater awareness by putting them publicly on our YouTube channel so that other people can watch them. And we'd really try and do this, especially with things like the updates for the fertility control research. So we have an annual update, so people really get on board with and understand where we are with the research, but what the research is all about. And it's always great to hear from the researchers, the experts delivering it as well. We look at signatory and stakeholder articles, things on social media. Our main social media is on Twitter. We do keep Facebook and Instagram ticking along, but Twitter seems to be a really important place for political and environmental and scientific social media sharing. And we're also going to be looking at updating our website and hopefully creating a new website in the next few months, and filming is another thing that we're keen on. So we did not recently, but was it last year or the year before, we created yes, the year before, we created a short film to look at grey squirrel bark stripping damage, and to hear from various people involved in the issue and the management side of things. And that's been hugely popular on our YouTube channel. And what we'd like to do is, once we're a little bit further along with the fertility control, we want to look at creating a short film that helps to promote and share information on our fertility control work. In terms of fundraising, we're so very grateful to everyone that donated to the research phase of the grey squirrel fertility control programme. It's fantastic that we were able to reach our £1 million target to complete the research. And I'll talk a little bit more about the research in a bit, but yeah, the donations came from so many private individuals, from grant making organisations, from the UK Squirrel Accord signatories, from estates. And it's been absolutely fantastic, the support and the interest we've had in the fertility control work, especially as it's picked up pace and as it's been developed and as it moved further down the line, progress has been made. But yeah, a massive thank you. And our fundraising focus is now going to shift to the remaining phases needed to deliver the fertility control programme, and I'll go through that a bit more in the next couple of sections. But it's just to highlight that we in no way have finished fundraising. And we're also looking at the wider UK Squirrel Accord activities to raise awareness and deliver our aims. So things like an updated website that engages more people, things like in-person events that we would like to put on, and lots of other activities. But our main focus will always be on the fertility control programme at this stage, but we do need to fund other activities that help us deliver our aims. And we can now do that. In terms of the Knowledge Exchange and Woodland Management Subcommittee, we look at contributing to national policy. We're currently working with the Forestry Commission to develop best practice guidance for tree felling in red squirrel areas, and that will have an England focus, and it's based on some of the work that was done in Scotland, and it's had involvement from a range of different stakeholders. It's of interest once it's been created, it is of interest to Wales as well. And so we're hoping that by providing this guidance to foresters, we can help protect red squirrels during tree felling operations. We're developing a grey squirrel impact and assessment methodology and recording system. So this was first created by the National Forest, and it gives us a way of doing surveys that enable us to understand the damage, the impact of the damage that grey squirrel bark stripping is having on a woodland. The Forestry Commission have picked it up for their woodland grant system. And what we're doing at the moment is just refining it. The National Forest earlier this year had some contractors in, and they were looking at the way the methodology was initially set up, and have given some recommendations to how it can be slightly improved. And once that is available and it's signed off, what we'd like to do is then run some training workshops on how you can carry out this assessment in your own woodland, and where that information might be stored, so we can build up a bigger picture across the country of the levels of damage that are going on. We gather evidence of grey squirrel bark stripping impact. So again, this year we had wildlife cameras out in a couple of woodlands to capture footage. One of which is I've had it in a national wood in the National Forest for the last 3 years, looking at the same tree. And we've now got 3 years of evidence to show that grey squirrels come back and repeatedly bark strip and damage trees year after year. And it's not just the damage on over 1 year that is an issue, it's that repeated damage over many years. And there's a grey squirrel management training course out that's Lantra accredited now, that the British red squirrel are mainly managing, but anybody can get involved. And what it's hoped is that having a Lantra accreditation, having that certificate, will allow grey squirrel management to take place on larger areas of land and across more of the landing-owning estates. The Red Squirrel Conservation Subcommittee has been focused on things like the Red Squirrel Strategy for Northern Ireland that was recently published a few months ago this year, and is well worth a read. We're working on the England Red Squirrel Action Plan, and the new updated Grey Squirrel Action Plan are currently with DEFRA getting ministerial sign-off. And once they have that, we will be able to then deliver both of those action plans. We also support the existing action plans and strategies that are in Scotland and Wales at the moment. And once England has it signed off, there will be action plans and strategies for red squirrel conservation and grey squirrel management in all of the UK devolved countries. And they should, we hope, be able to be collaborative and coordinated. So although they're for the individual countries, they will complement each other. We're working on a red squirrel reintroduction strategy for England. So there have been reintroductions going on in the other reinforced red squirrel reinforcements being done in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Because of the level and the number of grey squirrels in this country, there are concerns over how reintroductions and what that would look like. However, Natural England has now secured some funding, which will enable us to work with the IUCN and the Zoological Society of London to look at creating a strategy, gathering all of the evidence, gathering all of the opinions and the views of all of the stakeholders in England, and seeing what a reintroduction strategy would look like for mainland England. This is something that the IUCN do with various species all over the world. So we're really looking forward to the project, which should start next year, and it will last for 2 years. And at the end of that, we should have a strategy that we can all get behind and support and start to deliver. And then with RSNE, we've been trying to support a National Heritage Lottery Fund bid that will be a cross-border project across Northern England and the Scottish borders, which will be a multi-million-pound project, which we hope will help to tackle the grey squirrel management issue, but also support the landscape scale field trials for the fertility control research. So in terms of our research, we very much have one research focus area, although we are looking at other bits of research, future research. So across the world, fertility control is increasingly being used to manage wildlife populations. It's being used in America to manage wild horse populations. It's been used in Africa to manage elephant populations. And it's been used, if you want to find out more about that, the Botstibbet Institute for Wildlife Fertility Control has a fantastic website where you can see see a lot of work that's being done on fertility control. At the moment, that is an injectable. What is being used is mostly injectable forms. It just isn't feasible to capture and inject millions of grey squirrels that you can't release back into the wild anyway. So what the UK Squirrel Accord is fundraising for, and what the APHA helping to deliver delivering is development of a grey squirrel oral contraceptive and a species-specific feeding hopper. So the oral contraceptive would mean that the contraceptive can be effectively put into a bait that will go in the feeding hopper that no other species could get into apart from a grey squirrel. And that oral contraceptive will successfully be able to survive the digestive tract and to get into the bloodstream and to cause infertility. And if you want to find out more about the fertility control research, then we had an update earlier this year, in the last couple of months, with the APHA team, the Animal and Plant Health Agency team, delivering the research, and that is available on our YouTube channel, or you can go to our website, www.squirrelaccord.uk, to find out more. And that we have a useful FAQs fact sheet in our resources library section, or at the bottom of the fertility control research page on our website. So as I mentioned earlier, there are different phases needed to deliver the grey squirrel fertility control programme for the UK. There are currently 4 phases. Research and development, which we've achieved the fundraising for, which again is absolutely fantastic, and will end in January 2024. We are moving on to fundraising for and developing the landscape scale trials. So the field trials that we need to understand how the fertility control could be delivered at a landscape scale. What percentage of land would we need to cover, how that might look like in red squirrel only areas, what it might look like in grey squirrel only areas, or where you have red and grey squirrels, what it might look like in areas of woodland, urban environments and suburban environments, areas of more trees, areas of less trees. There's quite a lot we need to know, and also the level of involvement we'd need from landowning estates or volunteers, or any stakeholders really. And yeah, so they're currently in development, and then we'll need the testing for registration, and again that's something that we'll need to fundraise for. So what data do we need to collect, and what tests do we need to carry out on the final products, whatever the oral contraceptive looks like and whatever the feeding hopper looks like, to make sure that those products can be registered with the appropriate body so that they can be manufactured. And then finally, there is the widespread availability of the methods. So discussing things with manufacturers on how they could be manufactured, and ensuring that they're affordable and effective, and what that potential widespread availability or potential rollout across the country would look like. In terms of our achievements, so we're grateful to everybody that's involved, and we're continuing to increase the number of UK Squirrel Accord signatories, supporters and collaborators that are actually actively engaged in the work of the Accord and in delivering those aims. And yet everybody that is involved or might potentially be involved, we're very, very grateful. As we talked about, we're developing a novel fertility control method for reducing grey squirrel numbers, and we hope that this can work as an alternative or complementary method. So there was a study done to look at public attitudes to grey squirrel management, and anything that is a traditional method that's lethal method for grey squirrel management is seen to be less publicly acceptable than the oral contraceptive, which was seen as the most publicly acceptable method above that of pine martens. And so we're very positive that actually this will offer a way of managing grey squirrels in areas which wouldn't necessarily allow traditional management methods, or it could be used alongside traditional management methods. And again, to find out more about that, please have a look at the APHA update and our update on our YouTube channel. We're monitoring, supporting other new methods of grey squirrel management. So we're always horizon scanning and looking at whatever new bits of science and technology are coming up. And I think it's really important that we do look at all the new science and technology, because as they evolve and develop, we're finding solutions to old problems that at one time might have seemed impossible to be able to tackle. And especially with established invasive species, they are a major issue in terms of tackling their sheer numbers and the weight of the negative impacts that they can have. So fertility control could potentially be used for other species in the future if successful for grey squirrels. Obviously, the contraceptive formula and the delivery mechanism would need to be specific to each species, but the oral contraceptive that we're looking at the moment is mammal specific, not species specific. So it opens up that opportunity for tackling other species such as non-native deer. Other achievements are increasing sector and public awareness of squirrel issues and solutions and improving knowledge sharing. Again, this sharing of the scientific evidence is really vital. The sharing of the work that's being carried out is really important, raising awareness of the issues and the solutions. So what is the Accord doing, but also what is the work of the red squirrel community groups and the organisations that are supporting red squirrel conservation that are really vital for this work. We've been influencing government policy and activities across the devolved UK countries, so looking at a kind of bottom up and top down approach. And I think it's really important that we work across all areas that we can to deliver our aims. And we've been improving coordination and collaboration across the signatories and stakeholders in the UK. So that again involves sharing information, but coming together to work on specific areas together, and because if we can work collaboratively, that is so much more important, and it will deliver so much more, especially in terms of grey squirrel management. Grey squirrel management is only really very effective if you're looking at it at a landscape scale. If you're looking at small pockets, then it's really not as successful, but it's also really important. Yep, as I mentioned, we've successfully fundraised for the fertility control programme or fundraising for the fertility control programme and the wider Accord activities. And again, thank you ever so much to everyone that donated to the project phase. You know, if anyone's interested in the wider fundraising for the wider programme and other activities, then just please get in touch. We've been developing beneficial working relations with national and local media outlets to help spread key messages, as I've previously discussed. We've had some fantastic coverage this year, and if you can just search for that online. And we've been exploring securing new ways of working and collaborations at local, national and international levels. And I think it's really important that, again, that we're working across the board at every level with everybody that we possibly can. So if you're interested in supporting the work of the Accord or red squirrel conservation more widely, then we're very grateful to anybody that donates to support our research and activities, and that can be done easily online if you go to www.squirrelaccord.uk/donate. You can get involved with or support your red squirrel community groups. If you haven't got a red squirrel community group in your area, then you can still get involved, even if it's not actually on the ground. It's always worth, finding a group, sharing their communications, supporting their work, donating to them, or just giving thanks really for everything they do. You can help raise awareness by sharing knowledge and communications. This is a fantastic week for that knowledge sharing and that awareness raising. But red squirrel conservation takes place all the way through the year, and our red squirrels need us all year round. You can read country action plans and strategies, and you can help deliver them. So as I said, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland now have an action plan or a strategy for red squirrels in each of them, and England's will be published soon. And support to deliver those, the aims within each of those action plans really does a lot, or strategies really does a lot for red squirrel conservation. And that was it. That was a quick whistle-stop tour, I think, of the Accord, our work, and currently what we're doing at the moment and some of our achievements. So thank you very much for listening. And I'll have a look in the chat and the Q&A to see if we've got any questions. But do feel free to have a look for more information on our website. That's www.squirrelaccord.uk, or feel free to email us with info@squirrelaccord.uk. Okay, I'll have a look at the questions. So we've got one question in. When are the RSPB, Woodland Trust, National Trust, Wildlife Trust, Forestry and any other forest and wood owning organisation stop supporting grey squirrel breeding and support grey squirrel management? Yeah, I mean, there is work that goes on in each of those organisations and across the signatories more widely, as awareness is being raised through work of the Accord and others about the scale of the problem, then more and more organisations, more and more individuals, more and more states are looking at grey squirrel management. I think the issue is in some ways that traditional methods have been less popular, and they have also, they can also take up a lot of people's time and resources. Time and resources are not everybody has available to them. And so what we're hoping with the fertility control research, or the fertility control, is this offers people an alternative way that's more cost effective, we hope, less time and resource heavy, and that people will be able to get involved in. So at the moment, what we'd like to do is that the grey squirrels have 2 breeding seasons, and so what we'd look at is hopefully having having to put out the feeding hoppers for only, say, 2 weeks out of each 6 months. So that would be like 4 weeks in a year. Which is a lot less time consuming, just putting the feeders out and having to replace the bait for 4 weeks of each year, than it is to go out every day and do trapping, or every day and do shooting, or maybe not every day, but or every week. Or so, yeah. And we're hoping that the fertility control offers that alternative and offers a kind of a new hope, really, for grey squirrel management. And each of the organisations I mentioned there are very much supportive of the Accord and our work. So there's only one question. I apologise again for yesterday's rescheduling. Oh, there's another question. Raising awareness. What are we doing about the RSPCA giving advice on how to attract squirrels into the garden and not necessarily highlighting the danger to reds from greys? Yeah, I think this comes up in other places as well. I've seen a few different articles on grey squirrel feeding, or squirrel feeding in general. We do try and get in touch with people to take that up with them and to suggest that they actually either remove that, or look at helping to promote the issue, the red grey squirrel issue. But again, this awareness raising is something that we are focused on and that we are looking at, but we really need everybody else to get involved as well. So if you see this happening, it's really useful to forward it on to us, but also for you to contact those people as well, to suggest to ask them to highlight the issue. If we're all working together, I really think that we can help raise greater awareness, and some of this will come through the national press that we've been doing. So as people become more aware of the issue, other people start writing in and saying, actually, hang on, that this has just come up, I've just seen this in the news. And I think there were something like 115 million hits to our recent press coverage, which means that somebody said that, was it everybody in the UK possibly saw it twice, which probably isn't what happened. Some people have seen it more than once, and some people have going to see it. But I have noticed the level of awareness since we had that national press coverage earlier this year, really increasing across the public and across people I speak to, and I know others speak to. So that's fantastic. Can you predict how long after the 2024 project end date that the delivery of the fertility treatment could begin? So I think we've been roughly saying that we'd like to see it being more widely available in about 2 to 5 years. We'd definitely come to the end of that project. But what we're doing, I mean, what we're doing at the moment is we're already trying to develop those landscape scale trials and get them, because some of these landscape scale trials don't necessarily need the oral contraceptive itself to be in the feeding hopper, because what we need to know is actually things like how many feeding hoppers we need per hectare in different kind of land areas. And so some of that can be done now, and also the testing for registration. Once we have the final, we know which of the oral contraceptive and feeding hopper routes we're going down, we can start collecting that data, and that data can be collected before the end of the life of the research project. So what we're trying to do is cut down the amount of time by which we can get those out into the wider public, but we're working really hard on that. What is the best way for community groups and nature partnerships to get involved with red squirrel conservation and the Accord? So there is, we have David Walter is the volunteer advocate for the UK Squirrel Accord, so that volunteers have a spokesperson on the Accord that represents their views. But if you want to find out more, and if you want to, feel free to email me at info@squirrelaccord.uk, and we can look at exactly what you need, and then how that might, you might be able to feed in. But David does try and share communications, but also gather information and be that conduit between the Accord and the volunteers. Yeah, if there aren't any more questions. Hopefully that was useful. Do let me know if not, or if you'd like to, to hear about any other topics for webinars or information about the Accord, then do let me know. But I hope this was, I hope this was a kind of whistle-stop tour, but useful for everyone. But I just want to say thanks to everyone that was able to join us today despite the reschedule, and I hope you do join us later at 1 for the Red Squirrel Breeding Talk with Judy Dunn. Please do keep sharing communications, joining events and getting involved in Red Squirrel Awareness Week in any way you can. This is a really important awareness raising opportunity for our endangered red squirrels. But as I said, red squirrel conservation really does carry on all year round, and the red squirrels really do need us all year round. So thanks very much again. And I will make this talk available on our YouTube channel, but goodbye for now. Thanks everyone. Bye.